Ndiaye. Merci bien, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Security Council, I am delighted to present to you the Secretary General's report on the situation in the Central African Republic in the beginning of this year. As you know, this year is an important turning point for the Central African men and women who, from December 2020, will go to the polls to elect those in government. But before talking about the electoral process, I would like to share with you a brief analysis of the main political, economic and security developments over recent months in the CAR. Mr. President, on the 6th of February this year, the country commemorated the first anniversary of the political peace agreement signed by the government and 14 armed groups. This anniversary was an opportunity to look back on progress made, but also to address challenges in implementing the peace agreement. I would first of all like to point out that out of the notable progress, well, it includes the fact that the inclusive government that stems from the peace agreement is still in place. Furthermore, the signatory parties have reaffirmed their commitment to this agreement despite clearly numerous difficulties. I would also like to point out that there has been a significant decrease in violence against civilians. There has been the authority of the state progressively and continuously extended. For example, all prefects in all of the 16 prefectures in the country have been appointed. There's been an ongoing deployment of the Central African Armed Forces and the domestic security forces, including in areas where they did not exist previously. The disarmament process has continued in the west of the country. Progress has also been made in establishing special joint units, security units, as provided for by the peace agreement. On the 16th of December, the first recruits of the special joint units were trained in Bua and are waiting to be deployed. Numerous challenges, nonetheless, in terms of logistics and politics, need to be addressed before they are fully operationalized. We can also commend the progress made in combating impunity and promoting transitional justice. Despite some structural challenges in the judicial and prison administrations, jurisdictions are continuing their work. This includes with the technical and logistical support of MINUSCA and the UNDP. More or less regular criminal sessions are conducted. I would like to commend the sentencing on the 7th of February, 28 people involved in violence committed in Bangassou in 2017, including the murder of Blue Helmets. The Special Criminal Court is continuing its judicial investigations into serious violations of human rights. It's also prosecuting cases regarding the massacre in 2019 of civilians in the Paua region by members of the 3R armed group. Furthermore, the draft laws, as provided for in the peace agreement, are now in Parliament. In particular, that includes the one on the former presidents, on the political parties and opposition, and the draft law establishing a Truth, Justice, Reconciliation and Reparation Commission. Once they are adopted, and we hope this will take place in the next few weeks, these laws should contribute to create a peaceful political environment and to provide armed groups alternative policies ways and means forward for their claims. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission should be a context for reconciliation that is much awaited by the victims of the crisis, to enable them to have their voices heard and to have reparations for harm. The victims are waiting for reparation. And Mr. President, the Central African population who have been struck by years of conflict want for themselves to benefit as quickly as possible from the peace dividend. This is why I commend the macroeconomic progress that's been seen in the CAR in 2019 in order to have promising growth for 2020. And I also commend the progress made in implementing the National Recovery and Peace Consolidation Plan. We hope that this economic impact, these peace dividends, will enable access to the population to basic public services throughout the whole country and progressively improve the daily life of the Central African population. Mr. President, in English.
As you all know, a peace agreement is not yet peace. It is a step forward, a long process, which is sometimes fraught with pitfalls. Despite significant advance in the implementation of the peace agreement, several challenges remain. These include persistent violation of the peace agreement by some armed groups which have continued over the past year to occupy administrative buildings, collect illegal taxes, and expand their areas of influence. Despite improvement in the overall security situation in the country, there remain pockets of instability, mainly related to clash between armed groups competing for territory and resources. These clashes pose serious threat to protection of civilians and have also led to rising inter-community tension in locations like Birao, Bria, and Alindon. These security developments in the north remain source of major concern. The inter-ethnic clashes in Birao between Runga, members of the Popular Front for the Renaissance of the Central African Republic, FPRC, and the Central African Liberated for Justice Movement, MLCG, mainly Kara, have further weakened the security and humanitarian situation in that part of the country. Pour faire donc face.
Therefore, to deal with these worrying developments, MINUSCA has had to adopt a robust posture to curb the attempts to invade the town of Birao by the FPRC, and it's had to take measures to protect the civilian populations in line with its mandate. At this time, when I'm addressing the Council, mediation efforts are underway to bring about a cessation of hostilities between the belligerents. I firmly condemn the FPRC and the MLCJ for taking up combat again. This is a flagrant violation of the peace agreement. I'd also like to condemn the public call for violence against MINUSCA put forward by the FPRC in Ndele, where populations were rallied to invade the MINUSCA camp. This is particularly unacceptable because it's using women and children as human shields to besiege the MINUSCA camp and to obstruct its operations. I would also like to denounce the illegal expansion of the Union for Peace in Central African Republic, UPC, in the extreme east of the country, High Mbobo, and some municipalities in the west. MINUSCA recently launched a military operation to stop this expansion and will spare no effort to bring an end to violence and to protect civilians. I would urge the Council to examine, for its part, robust measures against all those who continue to hamper the implementation of the peace agreement. Mr. President, this news from the ground is not that welcome, but it's not harmed the determination of MINUSCA to implement the mandate that you've conferred upon it. In cooperation with the guarantors and the facilitators of the peace agreement, as well as international partners, we will continue to take all necessary measures, in particular to protect civilians, to support the parties to implement the peace agreement, but also to support the preparation for the presidential and legislative elections for 2020-2021. This is an important stage in strengthening democratic institutions in the country and in strengthening the rule of law. As these electoral deadlines approach, new political dynamics have emerged. In particular, there was the return from exile of the former presidents Bozize and Jodidea. Both of them have affirmed and reaffirmed their desire to want to contribute to the peace and stability of the country and to contribute to peaceful elections, and this is something we can welcome. I would like to commend President Faustin Archange Touadéra for his spirit of openness and the consultations that he has had with the former heads of state and former prime ministers in order to guarantee a peaceful political environment. It is also crucial to ensure the inclusive nature of these elections. The vote of refugees must be allowed, and the participation of women as candidates and voters must be encouraged. Furthermore, the implementation of the framework for consultation with the political parties of all stripes, with civil society and public authorities, that had its first meeting on the 17th of February, that framework is something that needs to be encouraged and augurs very well in terms of managing the electoral process well. But these elections can only take place if the international community lends its technical, logistical and financial support, despite the mobilization of almost half of the necessary resources to hold the elections in the constitutionally stipulated time frame. It is urgent for all of the pledged funds to be dispersed as soon as possible, and for the other resources to be mobilized as soon as possible. I would launch an urgent appeal to all partners of the CAR for them to honour their commitments here. I would like to thank the chair of the PBCP's country configuration for the renewed support of his body and to stabilise the country. This was demonstrated during his visit to Bangui last week. I have no doubt that his calls will bolster my calls for financing for the elections. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Council, in conclusion, I would like to pay tribute to the countries of the region. They have rallied to breathe new life into their cooperation with the Central African Republic. They have thus contributed to the stabilization and peace efforts in the CAR. I would also like to commend the determination and political resolve of the government to mobilize all of the main forces in the country to ensure the full success and the full implementation of the peace agreement, and to ensure that the forthcoming elections will turn a new page in the history of this country. I know that Central African men and women can always count on the cooperation and the support of the Security Council. Thank you very much indeed.
De son exposé.